Okay, welcome again.
Bir dakika hocam. Bir dakika. Ben Sena diye vereceğim.
Başlayınca çevir açsın kamerasını ve başlatsın.
Yes, we are now on live on Untitled YouTube.
Okay, hi again. Welcome to second session of our committee. And in this committee, we will start to session directly. And now the turn is chair. Okay, it's on you. Dear chair.
Thank you, teacher. Now I'll be sharing my screen with you. After we begin the formal session, please do not interrupt anybody. So, the House will now come to order. We're starting this formal session with the roll call. Delegates are reminded to raise their hands up high when their country's name is called and respond with present or present and voting. With the roll call, any delegate which did not hear their name, please raise your hand. Afghanistan.
Present.
Australia.
Present.
Brazil. Bulgaria. Canada. China.
Present.
Denmark. Egypt.
Present.
France. France.
Present.
Germany. Greece.
Present.
Greece. Hungary. India.
Present.
Iran. Israel.
Present.
Japan. Republic of South Korea.
Present.
Netherlands.
Present.
New Zealand. Norway.
Present.
Poland.
Present.
Romania.
Present.
Russian Federation.
Present.
Saudi Arabia.
Present.
Sweden.
Present.
Turkmenistan. Ukraine.
Present.
United Kingdom.
Present.
United States of America. Any delegate which did not hear their name called, please raise your hand now. Pakistan. Your name's not on the list, so can I count you as Turkmenistan? You'll still be Pakistan.
Yes, sure.
Thank you. Now, we will proceed with opening speeches. Delegates will be called up individual and will have a speaking time 50 seconds each. Before we begin with that, please refrain from using personal pronouns. Use a third person. Afghanistan. You have the floor. Please do your opening speech.
Honorable Chair, fellow delegates, esteemed guests, the delegate of Afghanistan is privileged to take part in this conference and would like to thank you all for your efforts to make this conference happen. As Afghanistan, we know that the world will continue the wars if they still have the facilities and weapons to do it, and nuclear weapons take a part of that role. As long as such weapons exist, so does the proliferation and catastrophic use. So too does the threat of nuclear terrorism. We say it needs to get a complete end. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. What would you like to do with your remaining time?
Yield the floor to Chair.
Thank you. Australia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Board. Honorable Chair Board, fellow delegates. Good morning. The delegates of Australia is honored to have opportunities to take part in this prestigious conference to debate and find a chance to solve problems the world suffers from. We would like to express we don't support any mass destruction weapons, either chemical, nuclear, or biological. As a non-nuclear state, we want a peaceful and nuclear-free world. The delegate of Australia has faith that this conference will be fruitful and very productive, and we call upon all other nations to join hands in the coming days and provide practical solutions to be implemented in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. What would you like to do with your remaining time?
We would like to yield our time to Chair Board.
Thank you. China, if you're ready, you have the floor. China.
Yes, can you start our time, please? Honorable Chair, fellow delegates, most esteemed guests, the world has seen dreadful weapons and events throughout the history of mankind. Weapons of mass destruction such as chemical and nuclear warheads are amongst the most alarming, unnerving of them all. In all of the globe, there are still more than 12,000 nuclear warheads across 9 countries. It is the day we shall find a way to control these deadly weapons. Maybe we can find a way to stop the growth of such petrifying tools of death, but what we can do is keep some of the nuclear weapon states under control until they are no more threat to us. We hope our committee succeeds. Best of luck to the delegate. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Egypt. You may speak now.
Honorable Chair and fellow delegates, we as a delegate of Egypt are so honored to be a part of this. As members of the same world, we should all work together to improve the peace of all humanity. Now, even though Egypt has a history with mass destruction weapons, Egypt now is a member in good standing of the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons and is the leading proponent of establishing a zone free of weapons of mass destruction in the Middle East. We hope we have a peaceful debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. France.
Honorable Chair and fellow delegates, the delegate of France is delighted to have the opportunity to take part in this prestigious conference. Today, we are going to talk about interstate nuclear disarmament. France maintains the third largest nuclear weapons force in the world. For this reason, the Nuclear Disarmament Conference is very important for France. We want to discuss the peaceful use of nuclear weapons, but this is possible by agreements between countries. That's why we hope to find solutions to common problems together today. We hope it will be an effective conference for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Germany. It's your turn. Germany, can you hear us?
Germany is not here now.
Okay, we're moving on with India.
Honorable Chair, fellow delegates, and esteemed guests. First of all, the India are extremely honored for attending this conference. We are where each and every one of us has to work together and hard to improve the peace and prosperity of all people. Chemical and nuclear weapons used in the war still not stored for peaceful purposes in developed countries. Although the loss of life and property is minimized in developed countries where weapons of mass destruction continue to be stored, very serious loss of property and life can be observed in other underdeveloped countries. Our work on this issue is very important and necessary not only for limiting weapons of mass destruction, also for world peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Israel.
Thank you. Honorable Chair, fellow delegates, and precious guests. As Israel, we are grateful to be at this conference. As we all know, weapons of mass destruction are our common problem today, especially the damage caused by these weapons to humans, the environment, and the world is excessively. We believe that we will find a solution to this issue at this conference. As Israel, we want a peaceful world and we are open to all solutions in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Republic of South Korea, you may speak.
Thank you, Chair. Dear delegates and fellow Chair Board, we are here today to discuss upon one of the biggest issues in warfare. Weapons of mass destruction kill massive amount of people. Possession of weapons of mass destruction will produce no positive effects. It will only heighten the threat of another warfare. The only way to avoid warfare is not to have any mass destruction weapons at all. Every country should sign and obey by the treaty to prohibit the use of weapons of mass destruction, but there are some steps to completely eliminate the development and possession of weapons of mass destruction. As a delegation of South Korea, we will do our best to find solutions and implement stricter rules. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Delegates. Netherlands, you may speak.
Honorable Chair and fellow delegates, we as a delegate of Netherlands honored to be here. Let me begin on a sober note. Almost 40 years after the establishment of Conference on Disarmament, the specter of proliferation still haunts us. We live in an age of rising geopolitical instability, growing tensions, and increasingly aggressive rhetoric, an age when chemical weapons, despite their global ban, are being used, an age when even the gravest international taboo, the use of nuclear weapons, is under threat. Rarely has there been a greater need to strengthen the most critical pillar of our global security, mutual trust. We, as a delegate of Netherlands, hope success will come to any peaceful solutions. Thank you. Yield the floor to the chair.
Thank you, Delegate. Norway, it's your turn.
Honorable Chair, fellow delegates. The delegate of Norway is delighted to have the opportunity to take part in this prestigious conference, to debate and to have a chance to find solutions to the problems affecting the world in our present day, such as usage of nuclear weapons. We, as the delegation of Norway, will help as much as we can regarding these issues, and we consider that we all should find effective solutions together. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Poland, you may speak now.
Poland, you are unmuted.
Sorry. Honorable Chair Board and esteemed delegates, as a delegation of Poland, we are proud of our placement on this Disarmament and International Security Committee conference. Firstly, necessary to say, since 70,000 of our citizens were killed by chemical gases in Auschwitz camp during World War II, getting rid of chemical weapons and maintaining peace is a really important issue for us. So the topics are one of the problems that are mandatory to solve in the United Nations General Assembly. We will do our best to help the issue for the rest of the UN.
Thank you, Delegate. Romania, you may speak.
Dear Honorable Chair and fellow delegates, we are honored to participate in this conference. Romania hopes that we can solve our problems in a peaceful and an easygoing way. It's so dangerous to manufacture and keep nuclear weapons, and as Romania, we strictly deny to use them. Our desire is for countries to arm just for their security and peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Russian Federation, it's your turn.
Honorable Chair and fellow delegates, the delegation of Russian Federation is glad to be here. Our world is being threatened by the countries that holds nuclear energy as weapons. The delegation of Russian Federation will be as helpful as it can be with full extent of its power on this situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Saudi Arabia.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, fellow delegates, and dear guests. We, as a delegate of Saudi Arabia, we are really pleased to being a part of this committee. We know that weapons of mass destruction are dangerous for our world. Those are people, mentally, physically, and harmful for everything. As Saudi Arabia, we are ready to do whatever needs to be done. We are sure that we will be able to find good solutions to issues in this conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Sweden, you may speak now.
Honorable Chair, esteemed delegates, we are delighted to being part of this conference as Sweden. We hope that we will solve some problems that concern the whole world and need to be resolved with the valuable ideas of all delegates. We are working for make world peaceful place and use of nuclear power for more functional and peaceful. This energy very important for world, but we shouldn't use that for distraction. We hope we will great committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Turkmenistan, you may speak. Pakistan, sorry.
Honorable Chair Board and fellow delegates, we as a delegate of Pakistan, we are honored to be part of this conference. As you all know, in our world is problem with nuclear energy and armaments, so we need to discuss about what can improve and ensure full equality between states. And non-discriminatory rules ensuring every state's right to peaceful uses of nuclear energy. So we hope we will find an effective solution for these problems with other delegates too. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Ukraine, you may speak now.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Chairperson, distinguished delegates, and fellow guests, first of all, we would like to state that it is a great honor to take place in this prestigious conference. We are now standing in front of you with a great pleasure representing Ukraine's position regarding the status of disarmament and International Security Committee. We are gathered here today as delegates from different countries of the world to discuss how we can make our international disarmament and security committees more effective. For now, that's all we want to say. Thank you for listening and giving us your attention. Ukraine. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Delegate. United Kingdom, it's your turn.
Honorable Chair, fellow delegates. As a delegate of United Kingdom, we would like to state that it is a great privilege to be a part of this prestigious conference. Even though nuclear power is an impressive power source, false usage of it can cause huge catastrophe. We are here to prevent any more casualties that can happen in the future. We hope that it will be a great conference for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Now we're done. Are there any delegates who didn't deliver their opening speech? Raise your hands, please.
Seems like none.
Now we'll proceed with the formal debate. We are in a formal debate. Are there any points or motion at this time? Before we debate, create a speakers list.
Motion.
Motion, South Korea.
Motion to set the agenda item to topic B.
Any other motions? Seems none. Motion, South Korea. Any seconds? Any objections? Any objections?
Passes.
Seems there are none. This motion clearly passes. The agenda item is now nuclear weapons. Topic B. Now we are opening the general speakers list. Are there any delegates who wants to add their name to the general speakers list? Please raise their hands now. Sorry. China, followed by India, followed by South Korea, followed by Pakistan, followed by Romania, followed by France. Sorry. Please wait a second. China, you have the floor.
Thanks, Chair. First of all, we would like to thank all of the delegates for coming here today. In order to not fail, we ask every delegate to join in the arguments and give their opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. What would you like to do with your remaining time?
We yield the floor to the Chair.
Thank you. India, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Weapons of mass destruction used in the Cold War caused serious loss of life and property. As a result of such effect, there are agreements and contracts that India have signed positively. For example, we signed and approved the biological weapons and chemical weapons contract, but we didn't sign the comprehensive nuclear test ban agreement and the prevention of nuclear weapons proliferation agreement because we thought it was flawed and discriminatory. Before that, we had chemical weapons, but we voluntarily destroyed all our stuff in 2009. Except those where India still continued the nuclear policy of no first use. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. What would you like to do with your remaining time?
We would like to yield our time to Chair.
Thank you. Republic of South Korea, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We think that nuclear proliferation treaty has become the cornerstone of a poor non-proliferation policy. We must sign a stricter treaty to ensure that nuclear weapon stockpiles and development are under control. We propose some controls over the countries that have ongoing programs of nuclear weapons, and we acknowledge the importance of the International Atomic Energy Agency in this topic area, and we demand their immediate help for the surveillance of the raw materials of the nuclear explosive materials. Thanks.
Thank you, Delegate. What would you like to do with your remaining time?
We would like to yield our time back to the Chair.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate of Pakistan, you have been recognized. You now have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Board. Nuclear weapons are means to offset asymmetries, conventional weapons. So this is beyond nuclear disarmament. We will find a new effective solution. Thank you, Chair Board.
Thank you, Delegate. What would you like to do with your remaining time?
Yield the floor.
Thank you. Romania, you have been recognized. You have the floor.
As a Romanian state, we are against the use of nuclear weapons. We are one of the countries which is aside of Chemical Weapons Convention. Romanian state can take up arms for itself and its allies' safety. But we are not on the side of war, we are in favor of peace. Romania defends the territorial integrity of countries and welcomes every step taken by the states to protect their territorial integrity and reacts if a war crime is committed.
Thank you, Delegate. What would you like to do with your remaining time?
We would like to yield our time to the Chair.
Thank you. France, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. France continues to modernize its nuclear arsenal and develop new missiles. France adheres to its principle of strict sufficiency, whereby it keeps nuclear arsenal at lowest possible level in accordance with the strategic contests. France claims that its deterrence strategy is strictly defensive and that the nuclear weapons would only be conceivable in extreme circumstances of legitimate self-defense, and that nuclear deterrence protects France from any state-led aggression against its vital interests. of whatever origin and whatever from, including terrorism. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. What would you like to do with your remaining time?
We would like to yield our time to the chair.
Thank you. Are there any delegates who are wishing to add their name to the general speakers list? Please raise your hand now. If there's none, we will be choosing randomly.
There is India and Pakistan, I can see. Followed by Australia. Followed by Israel and Afghanistan.
Thank you, delegates. Now the floor is open. Are there any points? Are there any points on the floor? None. Are there any motions on the floor?
Motion.
Motion China.
Motion to move into a moderate caucus on the topic of actions we can take to prevent nuclear weapons.
Can you get closer to your microphone?
Motion to move into a moderated caucus on the topic of actions we can take to prevent nuclear weapons.
Thank you, delegate. Are there any seconds to this motion?
We have a motion too.
Okay.
A motion for a moderated caucus in order to discuss upon protecting nuclear raw materials from terrorist organizations and keeping them under strict surveillance.
Thank you, delegate. Delegates, can you write your motions to the everyone's chat so everyone can understand? We're waiting for your motions. Please write them to chat so everyone can see it. China and South Korea.
There's a problem with the chat to everyone's chat, so I'm gonna say.
Okay, they came. Are there any seconds to the China's motion? The motion is moving to a moderated caucus on the topic of actions we can take to prevent nuclear weapons. Are there any seconds to this motion?
Chair Board, you forgot to ask the times, like individual speaking time and the total time.
Thank you, delegate. Please remind it with point of order. Can you write the times?
15 minutes total, 1 minute individual.
China, can you say it too?
8 minutes total, 1 minute each.
Thank you. Are there any seconds to this Chinese motions?
There are 11.
Reminds you that you can say abstain. You must say second or objection. Are there any objections to the Chinese motion? Since we have both, now I'm opening the motion to the voting. All those in favor, please raise your hands now. All those in favor, please raise your hands now. Guys, you have to vote. You can't stay abstain. All those in favor, raise your hands now.
Raise your hand.
One, two,
13 seconds from now.
All those against, raise your hands now. All those against.
Four objections.
This motion passes by the majority of the votes. We're discussing upon the motion given by China. China, as the proposer of this motion, would you like to be the first speaker or the last speaker?
First speaker, please.
Thank you, delegates. You can speak now.
Thanks, Chair. We don't think we should prevent nuclear weapons. Peace and war needs a balance. If we get rid of all of the nuclear arsenals, we will tip that balance. Instead of preventing the nuclear weapons altogether, we should make sure to prevent the usage of nuclear weapons. We can achieve that by reducing the amount of nuclear warheads. This will also prevent a possible doomsday. United States of America and Russian Federation plays a huge role in this. It will be best to continue the extension of the New START treaties. Thank you.
Thank you, delegates. Are there any delegates who are wishing to speak upon the motion given by China? Please raise your hands now.
South Korea, Afghanistan, Sweden, Ukraine, France, Egypt. That's all for now.
Can you take it slow? Wait a minute. Sweden, Ukraine,
France, and Egypt.
Egypt. Are there any others who wants to speak upon the motion given by China? Please raise your hands.
Pakistan,
That's enough for now. Republic of South Korea. You can speak now.
Thank you, Chair. The elimination of existing nuclear bombs will not completely eliminate the threat posed by nuclear weapons. As a result, stricter controls on fissile materials should be implemented in order to discourage countries from developing new ones. So we propose a fissile material cutoff treaty to end further production of fissile materials for weapons outside international safeguards. And we propose an embargo on the construction of new spent fuel reprocessing plants until existing plutonium stocks, including excess military stocks, are depleted, as well as phasing out plutonium separation at current reprocessing plants if there are no compelling economic reason to do so. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, delegates. As promised, Afghanistan.
Thank you. We think nuclear weapons should be banned because they have unacceptable humanitarian consequences and pose a threat to humanity. Uranium and plutonium are richly used in nuclear bombs. To make sure those substances are not being used in nuclear weapons, we think all countries should sign a contract to not sell these substances to companies or people without licenses to buy them. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. As promised, Sweden.
We think one of the nuclear weapon activities' main reason is unrestraint. As you know, several countries made a nuclear weapon tests many times. Some part of this tests reported, but some part of this test done secretly. This is originate from untrained. We think we can request the authority about a country's nuclear activities information. This authority must give to unbiased international establishments. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. As promised, Ukraine. You may speak now.
Thank you, Chair. We share that view that the use of nuclear weapons is the most serious threat ever faced by humankind. In our opinion, the only way to eliminate the risk of another nuclear attack if disaster is to be able to determine the exact amount of nuclear weapons that countries have and to make sure they don't have more. Some special agreements should be signed with affirmation to 9 countries that they will not use their actual weapons and they should be required to submit regular reports every month. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, delegates. As promised, France. You may speak.
Thank you, Chair. Preventing the use of nuclear weapons is an important issue for the world. Most nuclear warheads are licensed by heads of states. Certain conditions must also apply to this permit. This situation can be decided on permissions. It should be practiced trying to adhere to the most peaceful principles. The right to use nuclear weapons in every country is not dependent on the heads of state, but it is appropriate for non-affiliated states to take this decision with the necessary state employees. Authorized persons may enact certain common laws on the use of nuclear weapons. These laws should be decided together with preventive and peaceful principles. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. As promised, Egypt. You may speak now.
We recognize the fact that some countries already have nuclear weapons, but we want to focus more on not making any more nuclear weapons. We have to limit access to the key nuclear explosive materials required to make nuclear weapons, high enriched uranium and plutonium.
Egypt, can you get closer to your microphone?
Is it better now?
Now, yes. You may continue.
Thank you, Delegate of Egypt. Pakistan, as promised, you're next. Pakistan.
Sorry, Chairboard. Nuclear decision-making reflects in international concern. Today, a country decision to pursue or forgo nuclear weapons depends less on international power politics and more on contests between the domestic elements. So, preventing the spread of nuclear weapons depends on building institution. This institution can be international, like the NPT or the International Atomic Energy Agency, or domestic. Are needed particularly in countries wrestling with the nuclear question. Today, most money spent on non-proliferation is spent in the United States. Yes, America is a critical player. We must support the efforts of like-minded leaders in India and Pakistan, in North and South Korea, in Israel, Taiwan, and half a dozen other countries that possess nuclear weapons or that might seek refuge in the atom. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. We're looking for 3 more delegates for speak to this motion. Are there any delegates who are willing to speak upon this motion given by China? Please raise your hands now. Don't raise your hand before I say no, please. Raise your hand now. France,
South Korea,
South Korea, and Australia. That's it. As promised, France, you may speak now. France, you're muted.
France.
France, are you here?
There could be any problem with the net. We can pass.
Yes, they're not in the meeting right now. South Korea, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. We propose an international agreement requiring countries to build new uranium enrichment plants only after they have been reviewed and approved by the International Atomic Energy Agency or a special committee under the United Nations Security Council and are subject to additional multinational supervision to make sure these raw materials are not being misused. And because it's politically reasonable, we should also weaponize Japan. We can also have NATO support on blockading countries that are still developing nuclear weapons. We should also embargo countries that will continue to commit a warfare. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate.
Australia.
Australia, you're next. Please lower your hand if you don't have to say anything. If you want to speak, wait me for say. Australia,
Yes,
you're next.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Australia is totally against nuclear weapons, so we think there must be restrictions, sanctions, and prevention for peaceful and nuclear-free world, and nuclear activities must be followed from an international department. Thank you.
Thank you, delegates. Are there any delegates who are wishing to speak upon this motion given by China? Please raise your hands now. Romania?
Followed by India.
Thank you, Chair. As a Romanian state, we want the destruction of nuclear weapons that affect the masses for peace in the world. Otherwise, we saw the results in bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Necessary conditions and solutions should be created. To restrict the use of nuclear weapons, the United Nations can impose an embargo on countries that refuse to use nuclear weapons. All the states in the United Nations should join NPT. Romania will take all necessary measures against these countries.
Thank you, Delegate. As promised, India.
Thank you, Chair. Although India is a signatory to trades on the elimination or limitation of nuclear weapons, some trades do not have signature and ratification, as we think that for sure. Sovereignty of the right to choose and freedom and are restricted in some trades. This is why we believe that agreements on the destruction of nuclear weapons should be fair and not oppressive. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. We are accepting one last delegate. Are there any delegates who are wishing to speak upon this motion? Please raise your hands now. United Kingdom.
China.
We can only accept United Kingdom due to our time. United Kingdom, you can speak now.
Thank you, Chair. Along history, we could see how risky it is to permit the development of nuclear weapons. We all know what happened to Japan back in 1940s. Many Japanese lost their families. We always try to avoid the problem with questions like, why did that happen? And whose fault was that? But fellow delegates, we're not here to blame anyone. But if we could blame anyone, we should blame ourselves too, because we remained quiet when we should have said something to avoid those things of happening. But sadly, we did not. So that's why we owe those people who lost their loved ones, who lost their lives, a fight. We should ban nuclear weapons all over the planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Since we have little time, we are waiting for a specific motion to determine the current caucus. Are there any motions?
Motion.
Motion Afghanistan.
Not Afghanistan.
Motion, prevention of other nuclear attacks.
No, this is not an open floor motion. We are waiting for a specific motion to determine the current caucus.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Motion South Korea, no problem. Motion South Korea.
Motion to terminate this current motion.
Thank you, Delegate. Are there any seconds to this motion? Are there any objections? Please use your vote. The chair reminds you that you can't stay abstain. You have to use the vote. Are there any seconds? I'm asking once again.
We have 10 more minutes, so you can say objection and we can choose another motion.
Are there any objections? Seems none. This motion terminated by the current caucus. Now we are opening the general speakers list. As promised, India, you have the floor.
Point of order.
Yes, South Korea.
We would like to be added on the general speakers list as well.
Okay. India, are you here with us?
Yes.
You're next. The floor is yours.
Okay. When it comes to nuclear weapons, there are tests for non-nuclear weapons that my country has produced. We did conducted a weapon called peaceful nuclear weapon test and other nuclear weapons tests. In response to our ongoing test, sanctions imposed by the United States and Japan on India are undeniable. In particular, that the enforcement of sanctions by the United States was extremely conflicted with politics in his own country. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. What would you like to do with your remaining time?
We would like to yield our time to Chair.
Thank you. Australia, as promised, you're next. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Australia was an original signatory to the Chemical Weapon Convention on 13 January 1993 and was among the first nations to ratify it in 1994. And we signed all 13 multilateral arms control and disarmament treaties and ratified all of these. That shows we are totally against all of weapons of mass destruction. So we will support all of the restrictions and preventions about weapons of mass destruction, and we call upon the stakeholders to agree with us to work about mass destruction weapon-free world. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. What would you like to do with your remaining time?
We would like to yield to the Chair.
Thank you. Israel, as promised, you're next. The floor is yours. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Not only do people die in areas affected by nuclear weapons, these weapons also damage the environment, and the resulting radiation causes diseases even years later. We know that nuclear weapons are harmful and always will be harmful. We emphasize that Israel has nowhere aims, and that its nuclear facility will only operate in the fields of industry, agriculture, health, and science, which are the peaceful needs of the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. What would you like to do with your remaining time?
we would like to yield to the chairboard.
Thank you. As promised, Afghanistan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Even though we certainly don't want any more nuclear attacks to happen, there are still possibilities that it might happen. So we also should think what to do in case another attack happens. First, we should raise money from the governments which caused the injuries, harm on the land, and clean up after the nuclear disaster, etc. And when we should accept donations from the ones who are willing to donate, we should also have shelters for the victims. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. What would you like to do with your remaining time?
Yield the time to the chair.
Thank you. As promised, Republic of South Korea. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We have proposed NATO's International Atomic Energy Agency and UN Security Council support on this issue. We also propose for blockage for the countries that have ongoing programs so that nothing can enter and exit the country. We also suggested stricter surveillance and several embargoes. We must take precautions for the countries who haven't signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty. We should also talk about sanctions for the usage and development programs of the chemical weapons. We should also discuss upon the regulations for war crimes. We also propose to weaponize Japan since they're a NATO member and also far away from North Korea. They can provide air and logistical support in case of another warfare. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Delegate. What would you like to do with the remaining time?
We would like to yield it back to the Chair.
Thank you. Since we have a short time, we're not expecting any motions. Are there any delegates who are wishing to speak on the GSL? Please raise your hands now.
Sweden. Netherlands.
That's it for now. We have 4 minutes. As promised, Sweden, you have the floor.
Nuclear weapons are really powerful and have a high potential. We have to learn to use that power in the right way. These weapons must be stay in 13 number because if we keep producing nuclear weapons, this situation will become an international threat. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. What would you like to do with your remaining time?
I'd like to yield the floor to Chair.
Thank you. As promised, Netherlands, the floor is yours.
Let me begin on a sober note. Almost 40 years after the establishment of the Conference on Disarmament, the specter of proliferation still haunts us. This remark hardly needs an explanation. You only need to look at nuclear proliferation in North Korea, at the lawlessness in cyberspace, at the breaching of norms and difficulty of holding perpetrators to account. We live in an age of rising geopolitical instability, growing tensions, and increasingly aggressive rhetoric. An age when chemical weapons, despite their global ban, are being used. An age when even the gravest international taboo, the use of nuclear weapons, is under threat. Thank you, Chair. Yield the floor to the Chair, please.
Thank you, delegates. Since we have 2 minutes left, we're waiting for a specific motion to suspend this meeting. Are there any motions on the floor?
Motion.
Motion South Korea.
Motion to suspend the meeting.
Are there any seconds? Please raise your hands now. Are there any objections? Raise your hands now. It seems we have both. No. Okay, this motion clearly passes. The meeting is suspended. Arkadaşlar şu an formal session'ımız bitti. Kapatıyorum linki. Kaçta gireceğiz geri?
Close your sharing, Eda. Close your sharing. Okay. Thank you. You are very nice. Thank you so much. And now turn is moderator. Could you say something and say the time next time?
Yeah, of course. It was so nice to hear your voices today. I paid my full attention to your motions. It was so nice. Thank you. For the third session, we are starting afternoon at 2 o'clock, 2 p.m. So we will be back here on live on YouTube. So see you until now.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.